Rain clung to Araya Coleman's hair as she burst through the double doors of her parents' Tudor-style mansion, her breath sharp, her heart hammering. Crystal chandeliers sprayed light across the foyer, momentarily blinding her. Guests in glittering gowns turned, champagne glasses pausing mid-air as whispers rippled through the room. Veronica Coleman froze mid-laugh, her smile collapsing into something tight and cold. She excused herself from the crowd and glided toward Araya, silk gown swaying like a reprimand. "Araya," she hissed under her breath, gripping her daughter's arm, "not now. Tyrone's engagement party is not the moment for whatever this is." Before Araya could respond, her father, Howard, appeared at Veronica's side, his jaw clenched beneath his gray beard. "Come," he muttered. "We'll talk privately." He ushered her toward his study, closing the heavy oak door behind them with a thud that echoed like judgment. Water pooled at Araya's feet as she fought to steady her voice. Inside the dimly lit study, Araya stood trembling on the Persian rug as the storm in her chest finally broke. Veronica eyed the droplets dripping from Araya's coat as if they were an offense against the furniture. "What happened?" Howard demanded, arms crossed, businesslike. Araya forced the words out. "It's Malia. She collapsed at school today." Veronica's expression remained unreadable. "Collapsed? Why?" "Dr. Avery Grant says she has a congenital heart defect," Araya whispered. "She needs emergency surgery within the next 48 hours or," her voice cracked, the unspoken possibility hanging over them like smoke. Howard's posture shifted, but only slightly. "Is she stable?" "For now." Araya swallowed hard. "But the surgery costs $70,000. Veronica blinked slowly. "Your insurance—" "I don't have coverage at the moment," Araya confessed. "My business slowed. I was going to restart coverage next month." Silence followed, cold, sharp, heavy with judgment rather than concern. "How much are you asking for?" Howard finally said, not with compassion, but calculation. "$70,000, Araya repeated. "I've tried everything, the hospital payment plan, personal loans, emergency financing. No one will approve without collateral." Her knees buckled as she dropped before them, something she had promised herself she would never do again. "Please," she whispered. "I've never asked for help. Not when Deshawn lost his job. Not when our roof collapsed. Not when I started my business from nothing. But this is your granddaughter. Please help save Malia." Veronica's eyes flickered, but not with empathy. She looked toward Howard, and they exchanged the same silent conversation Araya had watched her whole childhood, the one where decisions were made without her. Finally, Veronica sighed. "We simply can't, Araya. Tyrone's wedding is in 3 months. We've already committed financially. What does that have to do with—" Araya began, but a voice cut her off. "Well, isn't this dramatic?" Tyrone Coleman leaned against the doorframe, swirling champagne in his glass, his fiancée Jada peeking behind him with a polite, bored smile. "Trying to steal the spotlight?" "Tyrone, not now," Araya said, wiping rain from her face. But Howard lifted a hand, stopping her. "Your mother and I have already put down $250,000 on Tyrone's venue, catering, and honeymoon package," he said, as though reciting the quarterly budget of a company. "Non-refundable deposits." Araya stared at him, stunned. "You spent that on a party while my daughter is fighting to breathe?" Tyrone snorted. "Maybe try being more responsible next time, sis. Some of us plan ahead." Araya's hands trembled. Slowly, she reached for Veronica's wrist and unfastened the sapphire bracelet, her grandmother's heirloom, once promised to Araya since childhood. She placed it firmly into her mother's palm. "Keep it," she whispered. "I'll find another way." Walking back through the party felt like moving through fog. Guests whispered behind manicured hands. One woman murmured, "Poor Veronica and Howard, their troubled daughter always stirs chaos." Another replied, "Imagine bringing drama on Tyrone's big night." The judgment stung, but something inside Araya hardened. Outside, the cold night air struck her face, but she barely felt it. Her phone buzzed. A message from Deshawn lit the screen. "Any luck?" Through the mansion's glowing windows, she saw shadows dancing, people celebrating, laughing, living untouched by her desperation. She typed back, "No." But we'll save her anyway. When she reached home, exhaustion pressed on her like a weight. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Malia's crayon drawings filled the kitchen wall, bright suns, stick figures holding hands, hearts scribbled in red. Araya pressed her forehead against one drawing. "Mama's here, baby," she whispered. "And Mama's not giving up." Araya paced the kitchen floor, the landline pressed against her ear as she pleaded with yet another loan officer. "Please, please, my daughter needs surgery. I can pay in installments. Anything. Just help us bridge the gap." The man on the other end sighed with rehearsed sympathy. "Without collateral or updated credit history, Mrs. Coleman, our hands are tied." The line went dead before she could respond. Araya lowered the receiver slowly, as though any sudden movement might shatter her last nerve. Deshawn entered the kitchen, dark circles beneath his eyes, holding a folded check. He placed it gently on the table. "He bought it," he said softly. "Johnson bought the Mustang." Araya stared at him. "Your dad gave you that car. You rebuilt it for years. And I'd burn it to the ground if it meant saving Malia," he replied, cupping her cheek. She collapsed into him, sobbing into his chest. Their savings sat spread across the table, early 401k withdrawals, emergency funds, the Mustang money. A mountain that still fell short by $23,000. Araya pressed her palms to her forehead. "It's not enough," she whispered. Deshawn knelt beside her. "We'll find a way. We always do." But his voice trembled too. At 6:13 a.m., the doorbell rang. Araya, half asleep and still wearing yesterday's clothes, opened the door to find Samuel and Marcia Carter standing on the porch. Samuel's cap was soaked with dew. Marcia clutched her purse like a lifeline. "Can we come in?" Samuel asked. They stepped into the living room and sat stiffly, eyes drifting to Malia's framed photos on the shelves. Deshawn emerged, startled. "Mom, Dad, why are you here?" Marcia swallowed hard. "We heard what happened, baby. How is our granddaughter?" Araya's voice cracked. "Stable, but we're running out of time." Samuel cleared his throat, rubbing his palms together anxiously. "We sold the cabin." Silence hit the room like a dropped weight. Deshawn blinked hard. "You, what?" "Dad, that cabin was your dream." Samuel nodded. "A dream is nothing if your family isn't here to share it." Marcia opened her purse and set a thick envelope on the coffee table. $38,000, she said softly. Araya gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears blurred her vision. "No, no, we can't take this. That was your retirement." Marcia reached across the table, placing her warm, steady hand over Araya's trembling one. "You can. And you will. Malia is ours too." Deshawn wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand before pulling his parents into a tight embrace. Araya pressed the envelope to her chest, whispering, thank you," over and over. For the first time in days, hope cracked through the darkness. The hospital waiting room hummed with the steady rhythm of machines and distant footsteps. Araya clutched Malia's stuffed bunny, its left ear permanently bent from years of love, and stared at the clock. Dr. Avery Grant had taken Malia into surgery 3 hours ago. "She's strong," he had assured them. "But the defect is severe. We'll do everything we can." Now, hours later, Araya sat between Samuel and Marcia, their thermos of homemade soup untouched. Deshawn stood at the window, hands shoved into his pockets, shoulders tense. Every time the surgical wing doors opened, Araya's breath seized. 6 hours, she whispered. "It's been 6 hours." Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder. "She's fighting. Just like her mama." When Dr. Grant finally emerged, scrub-stained, eyes weary, Araya shot to her feet, heart in her throat. His tired smile said everything before the words left his mouth. "She's going to make it." A week later, while Malia slept peacefully in her hospital bed, Araya's phone buzzed. A text from Tyrone flashed across the screen. "Mom wants to know if Malia survived. Also, you caused drama at the engagement dinner." Then another, "Dad told the Hamiltons you were irresponsible. You embarrassed the family." Araya stared at the messages, her jaw tightening. She deleted them without responding. Minutes later, a cream-colored envelope arrived, Tyrone and Jada's wedding invitation, addressed only to Ms. Araya Coleman. No mention of Deshawn. No mention of Malia. Samuel sat beside Malia's bed, teaching her how to cast a fishing line with imaginary gear while Marcia handed Araya a warm cup of homemade chicken stew. Watching them, real, steady, present, Araya felt a truth settle deep in her bones. Blood does not make family. Love does. She squeezed Malia's small hand gently. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise." Back home, the bills stacked like accusations. Mortgage overdue, electricity on final notice, business expenses piling up. But with Malia recovering, Araya forced herself to rebuild piece by piece. Late at night, she spread her design sketches across the kitchen table, lit only by a desk lamp and the soft glow of Malia's nightlight. "You need rest," Deshawn murmured, leaning against the doorway. "I need this pitch," Araya replied, tapping her pencil nervously. Rockwell Hospitality Group had unexpectedly opened a bid for a complete renovation of all 7 of their boutique hotels. A contract worth $1.8 million. The kind of opportunity that could save everything. But she was competing against established firms with full teams, fancy offices, and budgets she couldn't imagine. "You're the best designer I know," Deshawn said, kissing her forehead. "They'd be crazy not to pick you." Araya smiled weakly. "Crazy is exactly what I'm counting on." The next morning, Samuel and Marcia arrived at dawn, ready for grandparent duty. "Go," Marcia urged, taking Malia's hand. "We've got her." Samuel knelt beside Malia, building a pillow fort. "Don't worry, princess. We'll guard the castle while Mommy works." Araya smoothed her blazer nervously. Her knees felt unsteady. "What if I mess this up?" she whispered to Marcia. Marcia held her shoulders, eyes gentle. "Then you'll stand up, dust off, and try again. But you won't mess it up." Malia ran over in her pajama pants covered in stars. "Mommy, make pretty rooms today." Araya knelt, gathering her daughter into her arms. "I'll do my best." As she walked out the door, she felt Samuel's steady voice behind her. "You got this, kiddo." For the first time since the nightmare began, Araya believed he might be right. The conference room of Rockwell Hospitality Group soared with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. 5 executives sat at the long table, their expressions unreadable. Mr. Donovan Pierce, the CEO, flipped through Araya's portfolio with deliberate slowness. "Ms. Coleman," he began, "your proposal is intriguing. But your firm appears to be just you." His tone was polite, but skeptical. Araya felt the weight of every hour she had worked alone. She steadied her voice. "Yes. But that's temporary. This contract changes everything." The CFO checked his watch openly. The marketing director whispered to an assistant. Araya inhaled deeply. "Hotels aren't just places people sleep. They're where life happens. Birthdays, honeymoons, breakdowns, recoveries. Guests don't remember wallpaper, they remember how a space made them feel." She unveiled her boards one by one, each detailing intimate, human-centered design choices. Slowly, the room shifted. Brows lifted. Pens paused mid-air. She was finally being heard. Still, the deciding moment came when she revealed the final board, photographs of Samuel and Marcia's rebuilt cabin. "Last year," Araya said softly, "my in-laws sold their retirement home to save my daughter's life. When she recovered, I redesigned their new home as a gift. Every detail honors who they are." She pointed to custom fishing rod storage for Samuel, a wide baking island for Marcia, a window seat angled toward the sunrise. "Design should remember the people living in it." Mr. Pierce leaned forward, his skepticism melting into interest. "Why should we choose you over firms with triple your staff?" Araya met his gaze squarely. "Because I know what it means to lose everything. And because I build spaces that give something back." Silence settled, full, heavy, electric. The executives exchanged glances. For the first time, Araya felt the tide shifting in her favor. 3 days later, Araya was washing dinner dishes when her phone buzzed. She dried her hands quickly, expecting another bill reminder, but froze when she saw the email header, Rockwell Hospitality Group, contract decision. Her breath caught as she opened it. "Ms. Coleman, we are pleased to award you the full renovation contract." The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the counter. "Araya!" Deshawn rushed over. She pointed helplessly at the screen. He read it, and let out a shout so joyful it startled Malia from the living room. He swept Araya into his arms, spinning her as she laughed and cried all at once. Malia ran over, hugging their legs. "Did Mommy make the pretty rooms?" she asked. Araya knelt, pulling her close. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "Mommy did." For the first time in months, hope didn't feel fragile. It felt like a foundation. 6 months later, Coleman Design Studio glowed proudly across the frosted glass door of Araya's new office. Not the kitchen table where she once sketched designs at midnight, an actual downtown workspace with sunlight pouring through tall windows. 3 designers worked steadily at their stations, the hum of productivity fueling her spirit. As she walked through the space, her phone vibrated. A text from Tyrone: "Heard about your business. Mom and Dad said they may reach out soon." She deleted the message without hesitation. Another notification followed, an investor inquiry, then an invitation to speak at a women's entrepreneurship panel. The world was opening for her in ways she once thought unimaginable. Behind her desk, a framed photo of Samuel, Marcia, Deshawn, and Malia sat in the center. Her true foundation. Her real family. She touched the frame gently, whispering, "We're just getting started." And she meant every word. The article in Entrepreneur magazine dropped on a quiet Thursday morning. Araya's face filled the digital cover beneath the bold headline, "Rising from the Ashes: How Araya Coleman Rebuilt Her Life Through Purpose." Her breath hitched. Deshawn came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Baby, that's you." She scrolled, heart pounding as she read the pull quote highlighted in gold, "My parents let my daughter suffer for a party. That revealed who truly loved us." Raw. Honest. Unapologetic. Malia bounced into the room moments later. "Mommy, why is your face on Daddy's phone?" she giggled, pointing at the cover. Araya lifted her daughter into her arms. "Because I told our story, baby. And sometimes stories help people feel brave." That afternoon, calls poured in, podcasts, conferences, interviews. People weren't just inspired by her designs. They were inspired by her, the woman who refused to stay broken. The fallout in the upper-class Portland social circles came faster than expected. A woman named Elaine Withers, who served on a charity board with Veronica, called privately. "I'm not sure you want to know this, Araya," she whispered, "but your parents' furniture business has lost 3 corporate accounts this month." People talk. Araya listened quietly, saying nothing. "They left the spring gala early," Elaine continued. "Howard didn't want to face the Hendersons. Apparently they read your interview." When the call ended, Araya stared out her office window. Instead of satisfaction, an unexpected hollowness settled in her chest, like closing a book she'd waited her whole life to finish. Moments later, another text appeared, this time from Jada, Tyrone's wife. "I read your article. I had no idea. I'm sorry." Araya responded with a simple, "Thank you." She felt no desire to reopen old wounds. She was done bleeding for people who never tried to stop the cut. 3 weeks later, news from Tyrone's firm reached her through Deshawn's cousin. "Your brother didn't get the promotion," the cousin said breathlessly over the phone. "Apparently his boss questioned his character after reading your article. He threw a fit in the office." In the background, Araya heard Malia laughing as Samuel chased her across the yard during their weekly Sunday dinner. She glanced around her bustling office, the expanded team, framed awards, the mission statement she'd hung above her desk, "Design with heart. Lead with purpose." She exhaled slowly. None of this was built on revenge. It was built on rising. Tyrone's struggles weren't her victory. Her victory was sitting on the porch swing at night, listening to Malia's healthy heartbeat as she slept against her shoulder. Peace wasn't loud. Peace was steady and quiet and real. And it was hers now. By summer, Coleman Design Studio opened offices in Seattle and Denver. Her team grew to 16 designers, 5 interns, and a full administrative staff. Rockwell Hospitality unveiled the first completed hotel renovation, and guests praised the warmth, the humanity, the feeling of being seen. A feature on Good Morning America highlighted the firm's groundbreaking policy: full healthcare coverage for all employees from their first day. "Isn't that expensive?" the interviewer asked. Araya smiled softly. "Some costs are investments, not expenses." Donations from her foundation funded surgeries for 12 children with congenital heart defects. At the fundraiser gala, Samuel gave a tearful speech about second chances. Marcia snapped pictures of everything, her pride shining brighter than any chandelier. When Araya returned home that night, she found Malia asleep on the couch, hugging her stuffed bunny. She knelt beside her daughter, whispering, "Everything I build now is because you lived." Their new home sat on 3 acres just outside the city. 6 bedrooms, a spacious studio for Araya, and an entire east wing designed specifically for Samuel and Marcia. When moving day arrived, Malia ran through the house with delighted gasps. "I get to see Grandma and Grandpa every day?" "For real," she squealed, grabbing Samuel's hand. "For real, baby girl," he chuckled, swinging her into the air. Araya watched from the doorway, heart swelling. Deshaun came up beside her with 2 mugs of cocoa. "You built all this," he murmured. She shook her head. "We built it. All of us." Later that evening, as the last box was unpacked, Araya walked the quiet hall, admiring the framed photos lining the wall, each one a moment of rebuilding, love, or survival. One picture caught her breath: Malia in the hospital, smiling weakly between Samuel and Marcia. Proof of who stayed. Proof of who mattered. One afternoon, while reviewing blueprints for an upcoming project, Araya looked up to find Jada standing at her office door, twisting her hands nervously. "I didn't make an appointment," Jada said softly. "I just needed to talk." Araya gestured her in. "What's going on?" Jada sat, eyes glistening. "I filed for divorce yesterday." The words hung heavy between them. "After your article, I started noticing things. The way Tyrone talked about people. The way he dismissed me. The cheating," she swallowed hard. "He wasn't who I thought he was. Your story gave me courage to walk away." Araya reached out, squeezing her hand. "You deserve better, Jada. Truly." Tears fell freely down Jada's cheeks. "Thank you for telling the truth." For the first time, Araya realized her voice had become more than survival. It had become a lighthouse for others drowning in silence. A month later, Araya received an email from a real estate broker friend with the subject line, "You'll want to see this." Attached were photos of her parents' former mansion, now stripped of furniture, lights dim, windows fogged from disuse. The listing price was shockingly low for such a grand property. "Foreclosure," the broker wrote. Araya stared at the images for a long minute. The house where she had begged for her daughter's life now stood empty, a hollow monument to choices made and bridges burned. She closed the email without replying. She felt no triumph, no sadness, only closure. The past had finally released its grip. When she stepped outside, she found Samuel teaching Malia how to throw a baseball in the yard, Marcia arranging flowers on the porch, Deshaun grilling salmon. "Dinner in 10, he called. Araya smiled. This was her home now, not the one in the photos. The first voicemail came late on a Tuesday night, Veronica's voice tight, trembling. "Araya, please call us." The next day came another, Howard, his tone uncharacteristically fragile. "We need to talk." She deleted each one. But the final message, left at 11:47 p.m. a week later, stopped her cold. "Araya," Howard's voice cracked. "We have nowhere else to turn. Please." She sat silently at the kitchen island, staring at the phone. Deshaun joined her, placing a gentle hand on her back. "You don't owe them anything," he whispered. "Not forgiveness. Not access. Not even a callback." Araya swallowed hard, emotions churning, not longing, not anger, just clarity. The woman she was 3 years ago might have folded, might have run back to painful familiarity. But the woman sitting here now, the woman her daughter watched every day, was built on steel and healing. She powered off the phone. Tonight, she chose peace. 1 month later, Araya's assistant buzzed through the intercom. "Ms. Coleman, your parents are here." The words froze the air around her. She inhaled deeply, straightened her suit jacket, and said, "Send them in." Howard and Veronica entered slowly, visibly aged. Howard's once powerful posture sagged. Veronica's expensive makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion carved into her face. Their eyes darted around the office, at the awards, the sleek furniture, the view of the city that symbolized everything Araya built without them. "Thank you for seeing us," Howard began, forcing a smile. "You've done very well for yourself." Veronica nodded too quickly. The magazine feature was impressive. Araya folded her hands on the desk. "What do you need?" They exchanged a glance, one full of desperation, not authority. Howard's voice cracked. "We're losing everything, Araya. The foreclosure, the debt, Veronica broke in. Families should support each other during hard times." Araya raised an eyebrow. "Family," she repeated quietly. Interesting choice of words. Veronica shifted uncomfortably. "We made mistakes. We were overwhelmed that night. Tyrone's engagement, the stress." Araya leaned back, studying them like unfamiliar faces. "When I begged for help, you told me my daughter's life wasn't as important as Tyrone's wedding. Do you remember?" Howard swallowed. "It was a misunderstanding." Araya tapped her phone, playing the old voicemail aloud. Howard's voice echoed through the office. "Your irresponsible decisions aren't our problem. You embarrassed this family." When the recording ended, Veronica's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't mean—" "You meant every word," Araya said calmly. "You chose your image over your granddaughter's life." Howard leaned forward. "Please, we're desperate. We only need enough to cover the remaining debt." Araya stared at him, silent. They waited, breath held, two people who once dismissed her, now reduced to pleading. Araya stood slowly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She walked to the cabinet, retrieving a sleek black suitcase. Setting it on the desk, she slid it toward them. "Open it." Hands trembling, Howard unlatched the case. Inside were neatly stacked bills. Veronica gasped. "Is this—" $120,000, Araya said evenly. "Exactly what you asked for. Not a dollar more." Howard's face crumpled. "Araya, does this mean—" "No," her voice was steel. "This is not forgiveness. This is closure." Veronica reached across the desk, tears streaking her cheeks. "Please, baby. We lost our way. Let us make it right." Araya stepped back as though the words themselves were sharp. "You had a chance to show love. You chose cruelty instead." She gestured to the suitcase. "Take it. And leave." The silence that followed felt final. Heavy. Unbreakable. As they left, neither dared look back. When the door closed behind them, Araya stood motionless. The sun dipped behind the skyline, casting amber light across her office. 4 years, she had carried their rejection like stones in her pockets, heavy, dragging her down. Tonight, she set them down for good. She returned to her desk and traced her fingers across the framed photo there. Malia grinning, Samuel holding her too tightly, Marcia wiping tears of pride. Her real family. She whispered into the empty room, "It's over." But it wasn't grief she felt. It wasn't anger. It was freedom, a quiet, steady release that wrapped around her like warm air after a storm. She packed her bag for the day and walked out, leaving behind the ghosts of who she once was. The elevator doors closed gently, carrying her toward a future unburdened. That weekend, Samuel flipped burgers on the backyard grill while Malia helped him steady the spatula. She squealed each time a flame flared. "I'm the best burger chef in the whole world," she shouted. "At least 5 states," Samuel corrected, laughing. Marcia arranged plates on the picnic table as neighbors arrived with homemade dishes, filling the yard with chatter and warmth. Community. Connection. Everything Araya once lived without. "Mom," Malia called, waving a piece of paper. "I made us." The drawing showed 5 figures holding hands, Araya, Deshawn, Malia in the center, Samuel and Marcia on each side. Rainbow smiles brightened each face. Araya's throat tightened. "It's beautiful, baby." Malia frowned thoughtfully. "Lily at school has 2 grandmas and 2 grandpas. How come I only got 1 set?" Araya knelt. "Family isn't about whose blood you share," she said softly. "It's about who loves you for real." Malia smiled. Like Grandpa Samuel teaching me to fish. Later that evening, Deshawn handed Araya an envelope. This came today. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jada. Araya, your foundation grant allowed me to open my counseling practice. Thank you for giving me the strength to start over. Tyrone is finally facing his choices. I hope he becomes better someday, but I'm no longer waiting for that to happen. You changed more than your own life. You changed mine. Araya pressed the letter to her heart. The sun began to set, painting the yard in soft gold. Samuel lifted Malia onto his shoulders while Marcia fussed over dessert plates. A warm breeze brushed against Araya's cheek like a whisper from the universe. You're exactly where you're meant to be. She exhaled deeply, feeling gratitude flood her chest. Her life was no longer built on abandonment, it was built on abundance. As autumn arrived, the Coleman Design Foundation hosted its biggest event yet, a gala supporting families with children in critical medical need. Dozens of parents approached Araya to thank her personally. Your story gave me hope, one mother said through tears. I thought I was alone. Araya embraced her gently. You're not alone anymore. On stage, Samuel spoke again, voice trembling with emotion as he recounted the day they sold their cabin. I'd do it 1,000 times over, he told the crowd. Because our granddaughter gets to live. The audience rose to its feet in applause, many wiping tears. Back at her table, Malia tugged her dress excitedly. Mommy! Look! They're clapping for us. Araya laughed, kissing her forehead. Yes, baby. For all of us. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who had held her through her darkest hours, she felt whole. But healing wasn't a straight line. One quiet evening, Araya found herself staring at her phone, the call log littered with old voicemails from her parents she never listened to. She hovered over the delete all button, heart racing. You okay? Deshawn asked gently, stepping behind her. She nodded slowly. Just letting go of ghosts. He wrapped an arm around her waist. You don't need their words to define your story anymore. You wrote your own. She smiled faintly. Yeah, I did. With a deep breath, she pressed the button. Every voicemail dissolved in an instant. No more echoes. No more lingering shadows. She leaned her head on Deshawn's shoulder, watching the sunset outside their window. I'm finally free, she whispered. He kissed the top of her head. You've been free. You just needed to see it. And for the first time, she believed him. Winter brought snow, holidays, and a new sense of stability. Araya spent late evenings in her design studio sketching the next phase of the Rockwell project while Malia played piano in the adjacent room. Soft melodies drifted through the hallway, notes that once would have been drowned out by heart monitors and anxious breaths. Marcia peeked inside the studio. You working late again? Araya smiled. Just finishing a layout. Marcia walked over, examining the sketches. You've always had a gift, she said warmly. But now you've got purpose too. Araya felt her throat tighten. I didn't think I'd get here, she admitted. There were days I thought everything would collapse. Marcia squeezed her hand. But look where you are. Look who you are. Malia pressed a piano key dramatically. Mommy, did you hear my super loud note? Araya laughed. I heard it all the way in the future. At the start of the new year, the Rockwell Hospitality CEO called. Araya, your designs exceeded expectations, Mr. Pierce said. We'd like to sign you for an additional 3 hotel projects. Araya's hand flew to her mouth. Deshawn rushed over as she placed the phone on speaker. Your firm is visionary, Mr. Pierce continued. We want Coleman Design Studio leading our entire rebrand. When the call ended, Araya slumped into a chair, overwhelmed. I can't believe this, she breathed. Deshawn knelt in front of her. Baby, believe it. You worked for this. The team celebrated that night with sparkling cider and laughter. Araya delivered a speech. We didn't grow because we were lucky. We grew because we refused to quit. Her designers raised their glasses. To Coleman Design Studio. In that clinking moment, Araya realized she no longer felt like she was catching up. She was leading. Late one evening, after a long day of site visits, Araya found Malia asleep on the couch with Samuel's fishing hat balanced on her head. Marcia sat nearby, knitting a tiny scarf. "Long day?" she asked softly. Araya nodded, sitting beside her. "A good one, though." Marcia studied her face. "You've changed, you know." Araya tilted her head. "How?" "You're lighter," Marcia said. "Not because life got easier, because you stopped carrying what wasn't yours." Araya swallowed the lump forming in her throat. "Sometimes I think about what my parents lost," she admitted. "And I don't feel anger anymore. Just nothing." Marcia nodded. "That's peace, sweetheart. That's what healing feels like." Araya glanced at Malia, who murmured in her sleep, hugging her stuffed bunny. "I never want her to feel unloved," Araya whispered. "She won't," Marcia said firmly. "Not as long as this family is standing." Spring arrived with blooming gardens and a new energy. Araya hosted a company picnic at the local park, inviting employees and their families. Children ran through the grass while adults shared stories over barbecue and lemonade. As she walked among the tables, several employees stopped her to express gratitude for the healthcare benefits, flexible schedules, and paid family leave policies. "I was able to get my daughter treatment thanks to this job," one father said, voice breaking. "You saved us." Araya felt tears welling. "No," she replied. "You saved yourselves. I just made sure you had the support I never had." Later, as the sun set, Malia tugged her hand. "Mommy, today felt like a giant hug." Araya knelt beside her. "That's what I want for everyone who works with me." Malia grinned. "Then you're doing a good job." And for the first time, Araya truly believed it. Summer approached with opportunities Araya once only dreamed of: speaking engagements, partnerships, expansion into California. Yet the more her world grew, the more she cherished the quiet moments at home. One evening, as fireflies lit the backyard, Samuel taught Malia how to whistle using a blade of grass. "Like this," he demonstrated. Malia tried, failing repeatedly but laughing each time. Araya leaned against the porch railing, watching them. Deshawn joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "You ever think about how far we've come?" he asked. Araya nodded slowly. "Every day." "Are you happy?" he asked softly. She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt warmth spread through her chest. "I am," she said. "For the first time in my life, I am." Under the glow of porch lights and the distant sound of Malia's laughter, Araya felt gratitude settle deep into her bones. A few days later, another voicemail came from her parents. This one was short. "Broken. Araya, we're moving out of state. We just wanted to say goodbye." She listened once, then deleted it. No tears. No shaking hands. No lingering ache. Just acceptance. At dinner, she told Deshawn. He nodded slowly. "You okay?" She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I think I finally am." After tucking Malia into bed, Araya stepped outside onto the porch, breathing in the warm summer air. The sky glowed with fading colors: pink, gold, lavender. She closed her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, to the universe, to herself, to the people who stayed. She no longer needed apologies from those who couldn't love her. She had built a life filled with those who could. The following weekend, the family gathered for a backyard celebration, Malia's 8th birthday. Streamers fluttered from tree branches while Samuel manned the grill and Marcia arranged a treasure hunt. Children rushed around with shrieks of delight. Araya set up a long table of cupcakes while Deshawn filmed everything on his phone. When the sun began to set, Samuel gathered everyone for a final surprise, a video montage he had made of Malia's journey. Photos of hospital rooms, first steps post-surgery, birthdays, family trips, and triumphant smiles played on the outdoor screen. Araya felt tears spill down her cheeks as she watched her daughter's life unfold, the life she fought tooth and nail to protect. At the end, the screen faded to words: "Family is who shows up." Everyone applauded. Even Malia wiped her eyes. "That was beautiful," she whispered, hugging Samuel tightly. As the party wound down and lanterns glowed softly in the summer breeze, Araya sat on the porch steps watching her family, her real family. Samuel was teaching a group of kids how to roast marshmallows. Marcia fussed over the leftover cupcakes. Deshaun wrapped his arms around her from behind, and Malia ran toward her, cheeks flushed, holding a new drawing. "Look, Mommy." In the picture, 6 figures stood beneath a shining sun: Araya, Deshaun, Malia, Samuel, Marcia, and even a tiny bunny beside them. Above it, Malia had written in uneven letters, "My real family." Araya pulled her daughter into her lap, tears gathering but not from pain, this time from fullness. "Wholeness." "You're right, baby," she whispered. "This is our family." As laughter echoed across the yard, Araya realized the greatest victory wasn't what she built professionally, it was the love she rebuilt personally. And for the first time, her heart felt completely, beautifully free. Please, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel.